Hi, I'm Christy. Today I want to talk about how to make an Able account work for your loved one. Last week, I gave a brief overview of what Able accounts are. You can find a link to that post over on the blog. That's at www.havenofhopeforme.com. This originally posted in July of 2022. I thought it would be a good idea to pause and look at them in a bit more detail this week. So let's jump in. What exactly are Able accounts? Quote, a tax-free Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE account, lets people with disabilities save for their future without affecting their benefits. It also lets family and friends give them money, end quote. This quote from db101.org is about as succinct as you can get. I've got a link to that quote over on the blog. The ABLE National Resource Center puts it this way. Quote, ABLE accounts, which are tax-advantaged savings accounts for individuals with disabilities and their families, were created as a result of the passage of the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act of 2014, or better known as the ABLE Act. The beneficiary of the account is the account owner, and income earned by the account will not be taxed. Contributions to the account, which can be made by any person, the account beneficiary, family, friends, special needs trust, or pooled trust, must be made using post-tax dollars and will not be tax deductible for purposes of federal taxes. However, some states may allow for state income tax deductions for contributions made to an ABLE account, end quote. You can find that quote or a link to that quote over on the blog. Each state sets its own guidelines for specifics of ABLE accounts in their state. This means that you really need to look into how things work in each state before making a final decision on whether or not this is right for your loved one. There are two kinds of contribution categories. The first is simply general contributions. These are limited to $16,000 a year. This includes gifts from family and friends, as well as benefits or other unearned income. This amount will not impact your benefits eligibility. The second category is for earned income. If you work, you can contribute an additional $12,880, the current poverty line. The amount is slightly higher in Hawaii and Alaska. There are conditions, so if this applies to your loved one, please be sure to read all of the details before deciding whether or not this is a good fit for your loved one. Here's the thing. This is a way for people to give money to your loved one with special needs, just like they would any other family member. Birthday gifts, Christmas, you name it. Your loved one can receive comparable gifts without jeopardizing their benefits. To me, that's one of the biggest advantages to these accounts. But I digress. So who qualifies for an ABLE account? It's interesting to me that the basic qualification is that the onset of the disability must have occurred before turning 26 years old. You can be over 26 when you open the account, as long as the onset of disability occurred before turning 26. The ABLE National Resource Center explains it this way. Quote, the ABLE Act limits eligibility to individuals with disabilities with an age of onset of disability before turning 26 years of age. If you meet this requirement and are also receiving benefits under SSI and or SSDI, you are automatically eligible to establish an ABLE account, end quote. There's a link to that quote on the blog. They also go on to explain how your loved one can still qualify if they aren't currently receiving SSI or SSDI. There's also work currently going on to extend the qualifying age of onset to 46. The link above provides more information. db101.org includes a list of things an ABLE account allows you to do. And there's a link to that on the blog. You can check out the link for the specifics. I should note that db101.org website has a list of about 10 states that they have specific information on. It defaulted to Minnesota, so I left it there. Information may change slightly as you change states. So what kinds of things can you use the money in your ABLE account for? Great question. The short answer is anything that qualifies as a, quote, qualified disability expense, end quote. The ABLE National Resource Center explains it this way. A, quote, qualified disability expense means any expense related to the designated beneficiary as a result of living a life with disabilities. These may include education, food, housing, transportation, employment training and support, assistive technology, personal support services, healthcare expenses, financial management, and administrative services, and other expenses which help improve health, independence, and or quality of life, end quote. And again, you can find a link to that over on the blog. db101.org puts it this way, quote, spend the money saved in your ABLE account on many types of daily expenses, not just medical costs. There are rules about how to spend the money, but there's a lot of flexibility, end quote. You can find the link to that quote on the blog. The last part of that part about how to spend the money and being flexibility is a link on their website that you can find. On a different page, db101.org provides a list of the types of expenses that can qualify as a, quote, qualified disability expense. You can find a link to that list over on the blog. However, the link also gives a warning if you spend the money on non-qualifying expenses. Quote, if you take money out of your ABLE account but do not use it for qualified disability expenses, you might have to pay federal income tax on that amount, plus a 10% penalty, and it could affect Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, and other benefits, end quote. So here's a few final things to consider. First, each state has its own qualifications. Many states allow individuals not living in their state to open an account in their state. So you should look into all options, or as many as you can, to find the best mix of advantages to fit your loved one with special needs. Secondly, you can only have one ABLE account. However, you are allowed to switch your account to a different state. So don't be afraid to jump in, even if you're not sure of all the ins and outs. You can move the account at a later date if you find a better match. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to this. And as I jumped between websites and various pages within the websites, it got pretty confusing pretty quickly. So I highly recommend taking notes or organizing things in a way that makes sense to you. But I'd also recommend that you just jump in and open an account if you decide that's best for your loved one. In many ways, I believe this is one case where something is better than nothing. Next week, we'll take a look at the pros of opening an account. My question for you this week is this. Do you think an ABLE account is a good fit for your loved one? Do you have one for your loved one? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can leave me a comment below, or you can leave me a comment over on the blog. That's at www.havenofhopeforme.com. This originally posted in July of 2022. If you prefer, you can always email me at Christy, CHRISTY, at havenofhopeforme.com. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, but I'm still researching so that I can continue to say that life is good and there is never a dull moment.